Thank you for that lovely introduction. And I wanted to not only tell you I'm delighted to be here, I am very grateful as well to the Lisbon Council. And we've had a long relationship that has really been very helpful to us in giving us thinking and thoughts about the future to help really spur some of our discussions inside our company. And in fact, that's part of what I want to do in my brief time up here with you before we get onto a panel is I would like to assert 3 different points to you, and I hope prove them to you, and then have that be the basis of some of our discussion. And the first that Anne alluded to is that data, information, will be the basis of competition in the future. It will absolutely be the basis for competition and advantage. In fact, more important for advantage. The second point I'd like to convince you of is that there is a new generation of leaders already building a data-driven future. And then third, very important, I think the EU and the United States has a chance to lead the world in public policy that will drive this innovation. So a chance to lead public policy that will drive it. So let me start with that first point about data is the new basis for competitive advantage. You know, there is an unprecedented phenomena happening right now. And it is not just one technology. The phenomena part is that there are 5 happening at the same time. And that is what is different than in the past. So you have mobile, social, cloud. You have the instrumentation of about everything around us. And because of all of that, creating big data. So you have these 5 trends all at one time. So the phenomena is not that there is a tremendous amount of information, or some people would say an information revolution. That's not the phenomena. In fact, that's, you know, many people will say we've been awash with the data for too long. The real phenomena is that as a result of this, the world is going to become more intelligent, and I'm going to circle back to it. So just for those of you that perhaps don't always live in this world, a couple statistics. The scope. 2.7 billion people in the world now access to the internet. 10 billion wireless devices, 3x that by 2020, not far away from now. You also look, 1 in 4 people are on social networks. And they're not there to buy, read, they're giving their preferences, their observations, their opinions about things. And then you have 1 trillion interconnected objects of some kind. Be that your car, be that a truck, be that your transportation. But perhaps more interesting then, if you sum all that together, every 2 days, this world creates as much data as was created in all time to the year 2003. And we do it every 2 days, over and over, and that's just growing. So that gives you a sense of scope, which leads me to, I think, of just a very fundamental belief about the future, that if you look at the future, and President Van Rompuy, he really hit on this last night as well, think of a new natural resource in this world being data. There is a new natural resource, and it is data. And that data will mean to the 21st century, pause and think about this, to what steam meant to the 18th, electricity to the 19th, fossil fuels to the 20th. And it will, in fact, be the driver of growth and prosperity. Growth and prosperity. And it does mean then that economic, policy, social, all policy is going to have to change to support that. And there's another interesting thing if you think of it as a natural resource. In many ways, natural resources, you know, in their raw form, they're not always useful, right? They have to be refined and used. But unlike other natural resources, this one's infinite, and it's access to everyone. Very different set of conditions. So 5 years ago, those of you that know us, we began this conversation. We didn't, at the time, call it this, but it was Smarter Planet. That's what this was about. The idea that the world would be interconnected, instrumented, and there would be all this information that should make you more intelligent. So the question I want to pose, and to all of us, I believe, is that you look around you, the data is flowing, data will be the basis for competitive advantage. So the question, if you are an enterprise, if you are a nation, a country, you have to ask is, what do I do for that benefit to flow to me? What am I going to do for the benefit to flow to me? And I will tell you, the question is, will the United States, will the EU seize that opportunity and actually drive that innovation to their way? Now, I think, fortunately, there are many forward-looking people already building this kind of business. And that leads me to number 2, that a new generation of leaders already does exist that sees this, and they are building a data-driven future. They're already doing it. Ann mentioned last night at the AmCham, the 50th anniversary they had. There's some of you I know I met were there last night. I found it very interesting that the entrepreneur of the year that they had, collectively assembled and selected turned out to be none other than a young company out of Belgium that does what? Data analytics, right? I thought it was very symbolic at this moment of time. And so let me just share with you, because when I think people think of this idea, does this exist already? We've done thousands of what we would call Smarter Planet, Smarter Cities engagements. Because I want to take you out of an enterprise context, but in a citizen context that we all live in. And let me just read you some statistics, because it's been 5 years now, and there are so many examples of people using data for the good, the public good, the economic good, and as well, profitable growth. So let's take smarter traffic. We have now done this in dozens of cities, and on average, up to 20% decrease in traffic volumes, 20% decrease in emissions, 40% improvement in the prediction of a traffic jam, but more important, on average, 500 million cost savings, on average, out of all of the work, 500 million by city. You can look at the London Underground, which now has improved their ability to predict on time by 30%. Or you could look at the city of Toulouse, where they're using data, social data, to predict where road maintenance needs to be done. They cut the lead time from 15 days to 1 day. I would take you to smarter healthcare, be that Russia, Italy, Sweden, the United States, and on average, the benefits, 50% reduction in duplicate testing. It's one of the huge wasted costs of medical around the world. Up to 30% reduction in admission to a hospital unnecessarily. And perhaps one of the best reductions, a 75% reduction in readmission, always the most dangerous thing that happens in a medical situation. Then, smarter public safety. Los Angeles, South Africa, you name it, Spain. On average, reduction of 27% in crime rate and a 50% shorter response time instead of a crisis. And then I jump in last to smarter water. Dozens of cities, on average, cost savings of 110 million. We've already instrumented the Galway Bay in Ireland, and then the work we do in the Netherlands. Think about this. They're using all this data to predict. They take the data from precipitation, from levees, from sensors, to predict flooding ahead of time. And when you think about it, their low-lying grounds are 70% of where their GDP is created. So, I hope a compelling list. I think they're impressive benefits. And you say to yourself, well, who wouldn't want this? Who would not want those benefits? But I would tell you what's required. And so we've done all of this work, and we've stood back and said, so what are the biggest inhibitors, or some of the biggest things that you have to address? What have been our learnings from all? And I would count 4 learnings. The first one, there is the need for integration, and it therefore needs common data standards and the free flow of data. And I'm going to come back to this. Without it, it doesn't matter what kind of technology you have. Does not matter. The second, you have to have a very good plan to outreach and engage what I would call the newly empowered populations. That means every citizen. That means employees, customers. And it was a really consistent theme in the work we did. It's this idea that you have to build constituencies. And I see that happening now in many of the discussions that are happening here in Europe. You can't get something done without building a constituency on this topic. Number 3, you have to maintain an investment in R&D and in difficult times. Why do I say this? If you stay with the analogy of a natural resource, of which we believe data is, like past eras, it will have to be mined and managed. It will have to be mined and managed. And then number 4, every one of these has really highlighted the need for new skills. And that is, whether that's leadership or an agency or an organization, it is a change in mindset and a change in culture. Very vivid, we've seen across all of these engagements. But people are finding ways, obviously by these examples, right? They're finding ways to make progress. So This formidable new generation of leaders is emerging, and I would say working to bring the US and the EU, they are working to bring them to the forefront of the 21st century. So I want to end on what can the rest of us do? What must we do to help them? Which takes me to my third assertion that I thought about for this audience, which was that we have the opportunity to lead the world in public policy here. Now, I actually think it's incumbent upon those of you that influence public policy to do this for this new generation. And I can't say it again, they will generate the economic growth and societal progress for this next era. They will generate the economic growth and societal progress. But you have to get out ahead and in front of these policy questions. And if you think about it, the EU, the US, we are the most information-intense societies, so we should be the ones that are leading and setting the ground rules and defining. We should be in the best position to define the rules around this topic. And in fact, we should be able to balance vital interests with therefore unleashing innovation at the same time. So I would advocate that there needs to be change in 3 areas. Now, I would also, you won't be surprised, they are aligned to those inhibitors in a certain way. And so let me take the most important first. We must ensure the free movement and use, open use of data. Free movement and open use of data. Now, again, my analogy of a natural resource, it's here. And hopefully I gave you a myriad of examples. I could come up, like I said, 3,000, come up with many more. They improve public welfare all around. Now, as the recent news highlights, it is essential that there be an honest transatlantic dialogue about access to data. It has to address individual privacy and the dangers of cybercrime. And it needs to balance societal benefits with the free flow of information. Now, to me, excessive restrictions on data movement, it is going to stifle that innovation, it will stifle competitiveness, and it will stifle economic growth in any of these countries. So, important things that I would say to watch are around the proposed European data protection regulation. What would you watch? If new restrictions are around collection, analysis, around movement, or if it's overly prescriptive about cybersecurity. You know, anyone who understands cybersecurity knows if you are over-prescriptive, you will never be nimble enough. It just moves to another place. Because in the end, I think the EU, the US, the trade discussions that have just begun at the beginning of this week, they actually offer a great opportunity for us to realize this idea of cross-border data movement. So my first point is to ensure the free movement and the open use of data appropriately. Number 2, though, we must maintain investment in long-term research and near-term development. So I pick my words carefully, long-term research, near-term development. You know, Ann mentioned IBM, this is year 102. I reflect back, and you always learn from history, and our founder, Thomas Watson, it was during the Great Depression that he doubled IBM's research budget. And we have never looked back from that time. And it is why we today are positioned for this next era. Never in good or bad times have we cut that. It is a temptation, it is strong, but it is short-sighted. So I have a very hopeful sign. I mean, again, the work you all have done around Horizon 2020 and that Commissioner Gagan-Quinn has done, that you all are finalizing, the approval of a budget around $70 billion to commitment to research to continue, I think it's a wonderful sign of the real focus on innovation for the future. And then I get to number 3, what we must do. We are going to have to, because we expect, and it must be there, to enable the continuous upgrading of skills. It would be easy to just say you need skills. That is not the point. It is the continuous upgrading of skills, and that is among citizens in that dimension or looking at people as employees. In a knowledge-based economy, expertise is at a premium. But what is different? It's a moving target, and that's the difference. It is a moving target. You have to continuously be updated. To me, this is going to be vital to competitiveness, nations, countries. It isn't enough to say I need to build a high-value skill. It is a continual updating of that skill. And any overly strict employment laws, labor market rigidities, will be inhibitors to you achieving that economic growth. So, again, a hopeful sign, I think, were some of the recent decisions that were made by the European Commission to not pursue a directive on business restructuring, as well to not tighten the EU working time directive. Both, I think, very supportive of what I just said a minute ago. So I'm going to conclude, and hopefully this has come through, a subtitle under what I have said, by just emphasizing how much Europe does mean to the world, and it means to IBM. Look, we care deeply. I have a very huge business here. It is 1/3 of my revenue. It is a significant part of my population. I have multiple research and development sites. I continue to invest in them. My goodness, they have spawned 4 Nobel Prize winners. This is a very important geography to us. Now, I also have a very deep belief that the inevitability of global integration is here, and that it is inconceivable that you can have very great global integration with that outcome without a very healthy, innovative, and progressive European Union at the same time. And we're committed to a partnership to ensure that that happens. And I would just say, I hope you can tell just by my own voice that despite these challenges, I am actually very optimistic about this. At our disposal is a new natural resource. That is a wonderful opportunity. Just look at what history has taught us about that. And with it, we will absolutely unleash new ways to think, to work, to be flexible, innovative. And I think what people overlook, it will be more democratic, more sustainable, and in the very end, perhaps more humane. So I find that very appealing. I hope you do. I think we're at a pivotal point, and that is to actually shape the policies that will, in fact, help make this prospect and the opportunity of this natural resource really come to a reality. So I thank you. I hope that's set a nice table. If we're going to first, though, I think, turn over to my colleagues here, but I thank you for your time and look forward to our discussion now. Thank you.